Now, a district court in Helsinki has just dealt the Kremlin a blow that could mean more than 34 million euros worth of Russian assets in Finland are sold to benefit Ukraine. There are concerns that Moscow will retaliate, but officials in Finland say that years of building national resilience to Russia means it is ready for anything. DW's Terry Schultz reports.
Finland's just marked 107 years of independence from Russia. The more aggressively Moscow behaves on its side of the 1,300-kilometer border, the more assertive Finland becomes. A recent example, Helsinki judges ordered the seizure of Russian government-owned properties worth 34 million euros. They're honoring an international legal judgment that found Moscow guilty of stealing billions of euros worth of assets from Ukraine's national gas company Naftogaz in the 2014 illegal annexation of Crimea. The company has identified Russian-owned properties like these in several countries, asking local courts to seize them, but so far, only Finland has done it.
I don't know whether in some countries they are thinking about, wait a minute, we have a state on the opposing side, and it's the Russian state, should we or should we not, render an award.
Unsure of how Russia may react, the attorneys who filed the case for Naftogaz in Finland won't appear on camera as a security precaution. But they don't hide the reason they took the case for free.
To use our skills, our profession, to help Ukraine.
Defense Minister Antti Häkkänen notes this decision, taking money out of Moscow's pockets, helps Finland too.
We have to do all the measures what we can to kind of put down that Russian war economy.
For his part, Häkkänen has blocked new sales of property to Russians and says a near-total ban is coming soon to better prevent malign actors' access to critical infrastructure and supply chains.
Now we have seen that there's several cases where suspicious actions behind these acquisitions.
Finns are famous for keeping cool heads when making decisions against which Moscow may retaliate, and for maintaining their preparedness to a very high level.
Or in this case, a low level. Finns know that some 90% of the population can be housed in these underground bunkers if something bad happens up there.
Most of Finland's underground shelters, used for leisure during peacetime, could even sustain a nuclear attack, adding to officials' confidence.
The fundamental lesson is if you've taken care of your own society, its resilience, it's easier to be somewhat more proactive.
Up early at the Independence Day ceremony with her grandfather, even 11-year-old Ilona offers a reflection on this lesson. People have been working hard to build Finland's independence, she says, and that's why it's a great country now.
DW correspondent Terry Schultz filed that report, and she joins me now from Brussels. Good to see you, Terry. Tell us how damaging this court decision could be for the Kremlin.
Well, as it's the first one, I think that the biggest impact it could have is that it sets a precedent. I mean, 34 million euros isn't going to really put a dent in Kremlin coffers. But if other countries' courts start to follow what Finland has done, definitely it could force Moscow to pay off this debt to Ukraine's Naftogaz, which is 5 billion euros. And the lawyers like the ones that I interviewed there for my piece have been contacted in countries where Russia owns a lot of property and asked to start seizing them. And so far, as I said, only Finland has done so. But if other countries do that, it certainly could put a dent in Russia's sort of economic resilience in these countries if it doesn't feel that its properties are going to be protected, as they have been up till now, except in Finland.
Finland is now, I understand, looking at further restricting the purchase of property by Russians. Is there any criticism of this from inside of Finland? I mean, maybe by those, who want to sell their real estate to the highest bidder?
Yes, and in fact, there is so much Russian ownership in Finland that this has been an issue for some time. A lot of people with money in Russia come in and buy second homes in Finland, and they have been able in the past to purchase them in areas that the Finnish defense minister feels could be a threat to national security, close to Finnish military bases, for example, or energy infrastructure. And so that is the first thing that they want to stop. And they've just said last week that this bill will come before Parliament in January that would be almost a total block on citizens from outside the EU, and in this case, mostly Russians, to buy property in those sensitive locations. And that's because the Finnish defense minister told me that would prevent people from getting close to these infrastructures physically. And they believe that that would be a lot more security for the country than they have now.
And what is Russia going to do to retaliate?
Well, of course, they always threaten, as with any moves that countries take against Russian assets. And Russia said in this case, when the court took its decision, it said that it would expect that decision to be reversed, or else the entire country would be held responsible. You know, the Finns, as I mentioned, they just very stoically go about their business. The court said, hey, we looked at this. It looks like a valid legal case to us. And they didn't take politics into account. That's not how Russia operates. And of course, the Finnish government will not intervene in a court decision, so this decision is not going to be reversed. At the same time, Russia does have the right in court to argue against these seizures, and it's fully expected to do so.
So would it be right to say that other countries are generally more hesitant than Finland about seizing Russian assets?
Well, when we're talking about these property seizures, yes, Finland has been the only one to seize them in payment of a debt that Moscow owes. So this is certainly setting a precedent, and no one has followed it. When we talk about seizing Russian assets in general, there has been a lot of movement on the European scene. Of course, they have made decisions now to use windfall profits from Russia's central bank assets to help Ukraine. And I expect that we'll see more movement on that. There's a big push to use that money, the interest from Russian bank accounts to help Ukraine. So in terms of seizing Russian assets, I think there's a lot of hope that Ukraine will be getting money from this more in the future than they do now.
Terry, thank you so much for that. That's DW's Terry Schultz reporting from Brussels. Fascinating stuff.